So this is the first question of the crime and punishment section of the exam paper, and it is a multiple choice 1 marker. Nice and easy. It's asking you which one of the following is not an aim of punishment. It's got that sentence up there, that's just called a stimulus. It just gets you thinking about the topic. So it's saying religious believers accept the idea of punishment. It's not really part of the question, so it just sort of gets you thinking about what the topic's about. And then it says which one of the following is not an aim of punishment. So just they've emboldened the words not and one there, so that they're telling you there's one answer, and it's which one is not an aim of punishment. So if you know your aims of punishment, this is quite a straightforward one, because you can just, even if you're not so sure after reading the first one, you can say, well, reformation is an aim of punishment. Retribution, hey, that's an aim of punishment too. Deterrence, that's definitely an aim of punishment. So you've narrowed it down, and forgiveness isn't really an aim of punishment, is it? It might come afterwards, but it's not one of the aims of why we punish people. Forgiveness is more of a reason not to punish somebody, to be honest. So you know then that is the answer. So on your sort of answer sheet 05.1, you just need to just write the letter only. You don't have to write anything else. And then you've got 1 mark, and it's easy, and you can move on to the next one. This is the second crime question, and it is asking you to give 2 causes of crime, and it's really straightforward, that one. It's the command word is give, so you don't have to explain. Just write down any 2 causes of crime. You can, from marking this one a couple of years ago, you can pretty much write almost anything in here that is a cause of crime. I mean, you could stick to the sort of ones in the exam spec, which are economic, psychological, social causes, and what's the other sort? Economic, psychological, social, and environmental. But you could even put specific causes like they were angry, or just anything that is a cause of crime here. I'm just going to write poverty, because I think that's probably one of the biggest causes of crime. If you're struggling for money, you might steal to feed your family and things like that. So poverty, and I will put drugs as well. I think drugs cause a lot of crime. Lots of people out of their mind on drugs, going around fighting people, getting up to all sorts of mayhem. So again, no need to explain, just write 2 things there: poverty, drugs, job done, move on to the next question. It's quite an easy one, that one. Now this question is asking you to explain 2 similar religious beliefs about the use of community service as a punishment. So the command word is explain, so you have to say 2 religious beliefs about community service. Hopefully you know what community service is. It's like where you carry out unpaid work in the community. If you've been convicted of a crime and it's not so serious that you're dangerous and need to go to prison, but obviously you can't just be let off with nothing, otherwise everyone would commit more crimes. So one good way is to get people to do work and contribute back to the society. And note that it asks you for 2 similar religious beliefs. So generally that could mean that it's 2 opinions on the positive or negative side of whether community service is a good punishment to use in society. And then it says in your answer, refer to 1 or more religious traditions as well. So try and get, as long as somewhere you get some sort of religious teaching in there, then it doesn't limit it to 2 marks, which it can do if you don't do that. So I'm going to choose 2 positive things to say about community service, because I think most religious people would think that community service is quite a good thing. And I'm going to explain 2 reasons now why that is. So I think the first one could be that I'm going to say Christians believe in redemption and atonement. Redemption is where you've been redeemed, you're sort of saved from being a bad person into being brought back to being a good person. And atonement is where you become at one with God again, or goodness again, after you've sinned or done something wrong. So I'm going to say Christians believe in redemption and atonement because that was Jesus's mission, I suppose. To save humans from their sins. So just like God sent Jesus to repair the relationship between God and humanity, this is a way that convicts, I'm going to say convicts can repair their relationship with society. And give something back. So that's one good thing. And then you need to explain another similar belief about use of community service. So a similar thing that you could say is that it is also best for the criminal mainly because it keeps them out of prison. Community service is very much an alternative to prison. What's one of the biggest problems with going to prison? It prevents them from mixing with worse criminals. Prevents them from becoming corrupted, and they're also more likely to keep their job and things like that if you're just doing community service. So I think that's probably enough to get 4 marks now, but I'll just say that it means they can reform, because that's it. And also keep their job. Because reformation is obviously a really important aim of punishment for Christians as well. So with those 2 points explained, hopefully you'll get 4 out of 4. So something along those lines. This is a 5-mark question, and it is one of the explain 2 ones. So it says, explain 2 religious beliefs which show that all hate crimes are wrong. So you need to know what hate crimes are, and well, obviously that they're wrong as well. But how do the religious beliefs show that? And you've got to refer to some sacred writings or another source of religious belief or teaching. So usually that could be a Bible quote or a Jesus teaching or something like that. So again, I'll show you how to set this out so that you can be sure that you can get all 5 marks each time. Luckily, with a lot of these questions, you might feel like you're repeating things from a previous question, But you shouldn't worry about that. You can use the same quotes and teachings across lots of different sections and questions. Just take each question at its own isolated value and just try and answer it the best you can. So one religious belief I'm going to talk about to show that all hate crimes are wrong is the teaching that you should love your neighbour as yourself. Very popular Jesus teaching there. Went viral big time, that one. Love your neighbour as yourself is Jesus' teaching. And or it's saying that you should be kind to all other people. Because when people questioned Jesus about that love your neighbour thing, they said, all right, just lovely to my neighbours, yeah, but not other people. And then he told that parable of the Good Samaritan to illustrate that it's not just your neighbour, it's people from other countries, to people, it could be anybody. It's human love towards each other. I think I'll add that as an extra bit to make sure I get both of the marks. Human love applies to all people, regardless of things like race, religion, sexuality and stuff like that. Okay, because that's what hate crimes are all about, by the way. You commit a crime against somebody purely because of some kind of characteristic that they might have, like being a different religion to you or something like that. So then I'm going to leave a line and then come up with another religious belief or teaching that might show that all hate crimes are wrong. And I think it is going to be creation. I'm going to say something like, creation is a teaching which helps religious people, not even really talking about Christianity now, I think pretty much every religion, it will help religious people to remember that we are all creations of God. Lovely. That's a good religious teaching, and then I've just got to apply that to show why that says that all hate crimes are wrong. So I'll just, in one more sentence, just say this means that all life should be valued, or all life is sacred. And should be valued. And just to make double sure that the examiner knows that I'm addressing the hate crime part of it, I'm going to say nobody should be discriminated against. Or no, say nobody should be attacked. Because if you're a victim of a hate crime, it's usually because you've been attacked in some way. Because of who they are. Marvellous. Right, so again, if you want, you can just check, have we explained two religious beliefs? Yep, the love your neighbour one and the creation one. And we've directed them both towards showing that hate crimes are wrong. And we've definitely, well, there's about 4 or 5 references to religious beliefs and teachings in there. So you can be sure that that's going to be 5 out of 5. And then move on to the final 12-mark question. Okay, so now we're on to the 12-marker for the crime unit. And this is a very kind evaluation question, I think, because, again, no key terms are used really that you would have any problem with. It just asks you straight up, the death penalty should never be used. Do you agree with this? So evaluate this statement. So the command word is evaluate, like in all these 12 markers. You have to explain both sides of the argument. Some people think we should never have the death penalty, and some people think it should be used for some reasons, and you've just got to reach a judgment, weigh up the arguments on both sides. So firstly, give reasoned arguments to support that statement. Then you've got to support a different point of view. Remember that you need to refer to religious arguments. Some people can argue about the death penalty from a completely non-religious point of view, but if you do that, you can only get 6 marks out of 12. So you need to make sure that you get some religious arguments in there, and that's what we're going to definitely do. You can refer to non-religious arguments, obviously, as well. But as long as you reach a justified conclusion, then you can get into that top level and hopefully get 12 out of 12. Remember that my tactic for these is, no matter what it says in that statement, always just agree with it. Always start off agreeing. So I would say, you've got to think of about 3 or 4 reasons to agree with the statement. Try to elaborate on each one, give examples. Really aim to persuade the person that the death penalty should never be used. Okay, so I'm going to say something along the lines of, I agree, because God commanded clearly that you should not commit murder, and taking a life as punishment goes against the sanctity of life. Lots of people see it as just as bad as murder. Many Christians would say that it is not for us to judge wrongdoers, as they'll be judged in the afterlife. And Jesus stopped a woman being stoned to death for this reason. Christians should always try to forgive others no matter what they have done, as this is what Jesus taught them. The death penalty also doesn't allow the sinner to repent and reform from the error of their ways and become a better person. There are also many examples of when people have been executed wrongly, so it just doesn't really provide justice, right? And then again, I could probably go on there, but keep going if you can, and explain more ideas. But make sure that when you've finished your persuasive points why it should never be used, leave a line, and then begin your next paragraph with something along the lines of however or other people might say, and then launch into some different points of view. Do it in exactly the same way. You're writing now to persuade the reader that the death penalty should sometimes be used, or maybe you think it's really good method of punishment in a country, but just try and persuade the merits of the death penalty. So I'm going to say, however, it's hard to argue that it is never justified, as some offenders have committed such horrific crimes that they'll never be able to reform. The idea of justice means that a murderer must face the ultimate punishment. An eye for an eye in the Old Testament supports a righteously just response. It also prevents further harm to society and means that people will also be less likely to commit serious crimes, as the death penalty will deter them. It's also sanctioned in many religious texts like the Bible and the Quran. So again, remember that you don't have to explain quotes in full, or even say where they've come from for it to be a valid religious teaching. Again, when you've finished your argument on the other side, check that you've made a couple of points and that you've used religious teachings in them. Leave another line and then reach your conclusion. This is where you just basically say what your actual opinion is, or it doesn't have to be. Sometimes it can just be the one that's the easiest to explain at the end. So I'm going to say, to conclude, I think that the most advanced nations have moved away from the death penalty, especially in recent years, and it does seem a little barbaric, so we should ideally never use it. to punish criminals, especially when they can be in custody safely. So, if you agree with that, then, fair enough. But the examiner can never check what your actual opinion is anyway, remember. So as long as you can just explain points on both sides and reach some judgment, then you should be okay. So again, once you've got your structure sorted, remember that you can add bits in. You could put a little star and put extra sentences in, or if you just think of another idea and say, I could have written that, just find a way to get it in. Write a number, and then underneath or on the extra pages, write the number again and then explain it. So just check that you've made 3 or 4 points. So here we've said God saying don't commit murder. We shouldn't judge people. Jesus said you should be forgiving, and also we want people to reform and things like that. And then on the other side, some offenders have committed horrible crimes. In the Old Testament, it says you can deal out justice, in proportion. It acts as a deterrent, and it's, mentioned and sanctioned in lots of religious texts. So again, you don't have to have exactly 4 points on each side, but it helps to achieve some sort of balance if you can make sure that, you've made a good argument on both sides. And if you can do that, and you've got a conclusion, and you've definitely checked that you've put some religious arguments in there, then you should hopefully be on the way to getting 12 out of 12.